I've gone beyond anything that I thought I would achieve. I feel like I'm in the bonus levels on the startup side of things. Like I really want to build something that lasts 300,000 customers today, but maybe hopefully have 10 million in the future. And ideally, when I die, like Mercury's still like flourishing and like still thriving. And I think it just takes a lot to build something that lasts a long time. And what is the purpose of your life? When I did my first startup, it felt like I'd found my purpose. So I was just so motivated, and it was just like so interesting to me that I could like try to build something and like launch something. Like every aspect of it was just like super interesting to me. I just found this thing and I was like, you know what, like I'm just gonna do this for the rest of my life.
The Yesterday podcast is brought to you by Ro, the all-in-one banking platform for startups. Thousands of companies use Ro. You get everything you need to manage your startup's cash. Fast banking setup, cards with up to 2% cashback, and yield that turns your company cash into extra runway. All super useful in the early days of launching. But the thing founders really love about Ro is their team. Candidly, they were amazing to partner with us on. They're about 3 hours ahead of my time zone. I don't think they ever took over 10 minutes to respond back to a text or email of mine. They're obsessed with helping founders beat industry giants, and will go to the end of the earth to help them do so. Exclusively for Yesterday Pod listeners and viewers, you'll get a $1,500 statement credit and tons of exclusive perks when you manage your company cash with Ro. Terms and conditions apply. To learn more, visit ro.co/yesterday. That's rho.co/yesterday. Ro's a fintech, not a bank. Checking and card services provided by Webster Bank. Member FDIC. See rewards terms for details. Awesome. Well, thank you for doing this.
Yeah,
I have one quick gift for you.
Oh, you do?
I asked you, and we'll see if you like it or not. I asked your assistant, I said, what do you like? And she said, "Ron really likes hot sauce."
I do love hot sauce.
I got you hot sauce. I don't know what types
It's kind of
you
funny.
like.
People ask me, what do I like? And hot sauces is like my new answer now. This is cool.
And so I don't know which one you like. I got you an assortment. Maybe you like them. Maybe you don't. But I thought it'd be a funny gift.
I like a variety, so I'm sure I'll enjoy
Awesome.
it. Oh, this is good. I like it. I don't like it when like people often get me like ghost pepper ones.
Yeah.
They're just so spicy. I can't, like they can't touch my tongue, which is too much. This is good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Well, sweet. Yeah, I think it'd be good to start with your family and your parents and your grandparents and go way back.
Okay, that's way back. Let's see. So I grew up in Pakistan. So until the age of 9, I was in Pakistan. Then I moved to London from like 9 to the age of 23. My mom was a teacher in Pakistan, but then when she moved to the UK, I guess she couldn't get a teaching job. So she was doing like whatever it took kind of thing, like working at a grocery store. Like she was at a factory once. So she's always been like very hardworking, do whatever it takes. And my dad, I guess pretty much my whole life had a kind of car mechanic place in Pakistan. So he's like he trained as a car mechanic, but then he owned this place, which he still owns actually.
Oh yeah.
And then grandparents. Honestly, they all died before I was I think by the age of 5, my granddad died. So I never really had like a connection. I know my granddad was a judge on my mom's side, and then on my dad's side, I think he was like a kind of like a priest type thing. I should really know this, but I never met him, so it's weird. I don't have that connection at all.
That makes sense. What did your sisters do growing up? How was that dynamic there, and how did you spend your time?
So I have 3 older siblings, all sisters, but we're all close together within 5 years of each other. I know, what was the dynamic? I was babied a lot as the only boy and the baby of the family. But yeah, always had a close relationship
Are
with
they in
them.
San Francisco now, or how did
No,
they spend their time?
so my whole immediate family is still in London.
Okay. Talk about what you did during your childhood, especially after you moved to London, and what brought you eventually to the US.
Yeah, I moved when I was 9. I would say that transition was pretty difficult for me. I didn't speak English that well. Just like you lose all your friends, you lose all your family, and then we went from like, I guess like upper middle class in Pakistan to like kind of working class in the UK on welfare. I found it quite tricky, and it took a long time for me to kind of, and maybe I never really got over that in London. I guess over time, obviously I made friends and kind of gained confidence in the language and all that kind of stuff. And I always played a lot of sports growing up. So that was also tricky because I used to play cricket a lot in Pakistan, and I guess we played eventually a lot, but soccer is a big thing there, which I sucked at. And then I played tennis a lot growing up. I would say like a lot of my youth was defined by playing a lot of sports. I did swimming a lot as well. And then I did really well at math. I really enjoyed math, and like that was like my thing. In the UK, especially, I guess to some extent what I did is, you end up doing a bunch of different subjects until the age of 16. So I was good at math, but I kind of sucked at everything else, and mostly because I wasn't that interested in it at the time. So I never thought of myself as like a particularly good student. And the age of 16, you kind of specialized and do something called A level. And then I did really well because I just picked like math, further math, physics, and economics and IT, like all subjects that like were basically like math based or math adjacent. And that's when I kind of felt, oh, academically I'm actually kind of strong. And I ended up doing computer science at Cambridge.
What did your parents want you to do?
My dad was really into the idea of like business. And he was like, oh, the way you do business is study business at undergrad, which is kind of ironic because like actually in reality, that's not how you do business. It's like the opposite. So funnily, at least 2 of my sisters ended up doing some business-related degree. For whatever reason, that just didn't interest me. So I really wanted to do either a math degree or computer science. And in the UK, like the Ivy League is like Cambridge, Oxford. And I was like, okay, I really want to get in there. And I never thought I thought my math was good, but it wasn't like that great. But I thought at computer science I could do really well. And just because, I'd always done like some programming and I'd made websites and things like that. And it came relatively easily to me. So like it was, me choosing computer science turned out to be like a great decision. But at the time, it was very much like, hey, I think I'm good at this, and I think I'd get into like a top university doing it.
What is the first business you started?
Yeah, the first thing I made money on was like actually during the dot-com boom. There was lots of ways to make money online. So it was like, what was it, 1999? So like I was born in 84, so 14, 15. Yeah. And then I used to do like websites for like helping people with homework. So it was like, you have to write some essay on something, and we had like a lot of sample essays on like Macbeth or whatever. It was super simple, but it was kind of like, we put some ads on it, and then you try to get ranked and things like that. And I mean, I remember I got like a $40 check from that, and my mind was blown. I was like, I just made this thing online, and I made $40 kind of thing. Yeah, it was like, making money on the internet, like especially when you're young, like felt like fake money because I also had like a newspaper round, and that was like so much more hard work. It was like I had to, especially in the UK, you had to like walk down these cold streets, so I had a newspaper. I was since the age of 14, my parents never gave me money basically, and I had to like, I mean, not in like a bad way. They obviously like fed me food and I got shelter, but like all my excess money came from like me making money. So I always had like some sort of job. So that was my first like making money on the internet kind of moment. And then I did lots of various different things to make money on the internet, but nothing that was like a real business. My first real business was I worked at Bloomberg for a year after university. And I found it just like incredibly unmotivating. But I had a friend there that I met, and we would both look at TechCrunch and say like, oh, we could build this. Like this doesn't seem that hard. So we quit our jobs and we ended up making like, it was called RevMap. It was a Yelp for London, and that was my first real company. We incorporated. We'd saved up I'd saved up £6,000, which like to me was like a huge amount of money. That company didn't go anywhere. We didn't raise any money. We didn't make any money. We did launch something, but only like a few thousand people used it. But I just really loved the process of building things, and I decided to move to San Francisco to like keep doing it.
Who's that friend? What is he doing now?
His name's Tony. I think he moved to Japan recently.
Oh yeah, wow. You're still in touch with him?
Yeah. When I go to London, I see him quite often. He just moved to Japan. He was running like a physical martial arts gym.
That's great.
So he's always been in finance as well.
Why did you not end up starting Mercury, these other companies with him?
Oh, he was just done with doing startups. We really didn't know what we were doing, and I loved the process for the sake of the process. But yeah, he was like, I need to get married and get a real job, which it was fine. Like we left it amicable, but yeah, he was just done with doing a startup, at least at the time.
What age were you around this time? And I guess tell
So
the
I did
story
my
as well
first
about that
startup
company.
when I was 22. So I went to university, did 1 year at Bloomberg at the age of 21, basically, and then have been doing startups since the age of 22.
What is that story of the first company? When I had spent time with Yash, he had sort of commended you for your ability to just keep, I think you said you pivoted X amount of time. So over very
Well, so
many
that
years.
was, my history in terms of companies is 2006, that one company. And then 2007, I did my second company, which went for 1.5 years. And then end of 2008, I did my third company that went for 8 years. So most of that like significant pivoting and all that happened in that company that I did for 8 years. And then I started Mercury after that in 2017. So I did this one company in London. I did another company in the US called ClickPass. That one didn't have like too many pivots or anything, but it was a short time period, a year and a half. I'd say after a year, we knew it wasn't really going to work. We had a lot of users, but we weren't making any money, and we didn't think we could raise money. So my co-founder from that company wanted to do a talent acquisition, and I wasn't really interested in working somewhere. So he went and pursued that, and he did succeed at that. And then I started my third company with someone else. And that was called HeyZap. So that we did for 8 years. And that one did 4 full pivots. Like we started off in Flash games. This is 2009. And then obviously mobile games became a thing. And so we were like, okay, this isn't working. We were in a declining industry. So we pivoted to, I think around 2011, to build a mobile gaming social network. And that actually did pretty well. We got 10 million users. But our retention sucked. Like no one, it was like every month, every cohort would kind of decline over time. So we then pivoted to, like we had a bunch of like mobile games we worked with. So we started serving ads into those games. And we did, Android was like relatively new still then. So we did a fairly successful Android-focused ad network. And that got us to profitability. So that's like 1, 2, 3 pivots in. So we were profitable, but it was never going to be a big enough thing. It's very hard to build a at-scale ad network. So then the last pivot we did was in this like developer tool space for ad networks. The idea is if you're a game developer, you want to plug in 7 different ad networks, but it's super annoying to plug them in. Like you have to do a bunch of code and you have to figure out when to show which ad. We just make it easy to plug all of them in and optimize them for you, and give you nice reports for them. And that last thing is the thing that really worked. Like we had like really strong product market fit. We were growing really fast, and we ended up selling that in 2016.
Why did you decide to sell it?
We'd been in this like kind of cockroachy mode for years. Like we were similar team size. We'd, over 8 years we raised $8 million, and we'd been profitable for a few years. But I would say we weren't that excited about ad tech. In hindsight, we should have just waited another year. Like even after the acquisition, we 10x'd like in a year, and that was like we weren't even improving the product after the acquisition. So I think if we just stuck around and actually kept doing the thing, like we really did have very strong product market fit. But we were just done. Like we were emotionally kind of like done. And we'd spent a few years like ever since we did that mobile gaming social network, we had like we almost had an offer from Zynga. We talked to Apple. Just every year we'd like talk to people. We'd even like, signed a deal. Well, almost signed a deal with a company where their CEO got replaced, and we canceled it. So there's just like we'd been through this process. Where we were looking for an acquisition. And then finally, when we've got product market fit, and then we were approached by a few people, we were like, hey, let's just sell this thing and get out of this. And it's probably the right move. We were not passionate about that idea, and it was like I was 10 years into doing startups, and that was the first time I got to exit. So obviously I had a salary through that, but it was I always paid myself less than I needed to survive, and I had a kid by then, so it felt like the right time to take the exit.
How do you convince your team to keep working if you're going through pivot after pivot after pivot?
I think the main thing is we were having fun. So it is funny. Like, why did everyone stick with us? And like we had like some really loyal people. I think there's a few things. Number one, we had people. A lot of our team would join straight out of college, so they were like young, and it was a fun work environment. Like we were having fun. Every time we did a pivot or something, like we had like good reasons. Like we would lay that out and we got excited about the next thing, and we were like, hey, we're going to do this other thing, and that'll be huge. And there was always like something around the corner. And each of these pivots, like we did have some success, right? Like we did that social network and we got 10 million users, and that's kind of crazy for something that wasn't working. But like all through it, like there was this kind of sense of like success and progress. And And yeah, I mean, when we did the ad network, we became profitable. So yeah, there was always this kind of momentum that we were building. But I think at the end of the day, people's actual experience is not about like, is the company successful?
Yeah.
Not. It's like, am I having fun? And
Yeah.
we were all having fun, and it was a small team. So, we were like 16 people when we sold it.
Yeah. What did your dad think at this point?
I think they kind of expected me to, especially initially, they were like, they were kind of surprised I was quitting like a well-paying job without a plan. That sounded very good.
What was Bloomberg paying you?
£37,000, which, this is like 20 years ago.
Yeah, of course.
It was a pretty good salary.
Yeah.
Like I was getting paid more than my sisters.
Yeah.
That's what I remember. And I was like 5 years younger than them. So I was like, okay, I made it. From my perspective, I just like, it was so unmotivating. And I was like, what is the point of making money?
Yeah.
And I, weirdly, because I never had money growing
Yeah.
up, I was just like, I don't care that much. Like I had very low standards for my life, right? I just like in the sense like I didn't need to eat out. I didn't need to like go on holidays. I was just like, I will survive on like very little money if I can like enjoy myself. I don't think my parents were necessarily like sold that was the right move until that acquisition, right? And that was like 10 years afterwards. So I mean, they were like supportive, but they were just like, they were still like, I would say to some extent miffed by it all. It was like, because I was always like, oh, now I'm doing this. And, building a developer tool around ad tech is like kind of a very abstract thing to try to explain to your parents as well. So it was like, they didn't really know what the hell I was doing. But they were supportive. I mean, I would say throughout my childhood, they never like really told me what to do. It was very much like, oh, if you want to do it kind of thing, which I always appreciated. Like I felt like I had a lot of independence.
I recently visited the Macroscope office and spent time with their CEO, Kayvon Bakpour, and it was so great getting to know him and his team. He and his co-founders previously ran all of consumer product at Twitter and founded Macroscope to fix the problems they faced every single day. Engineering teams are shipping faster than ever with AI, but nobody actually knows what's being worked on, what shipped, and where your team's engineering effort is going. Macroscope is a code-based understanding engine with 3 core products. First is Code Review, the highest signal, lowest noise reviewer out there. It catches critical bugs with the fewest comments. Next is Status, real-time visibility into what every engineer and AI agent is shipping. And third is their agent. Ask specific questions to automate workflows, approve and merge PRs, and fix bugs on the fly. Sign up at macroscope.com today and get $100 in free usage. And if you'd like to join their team, they're hiring across every single function. Apply online or reach out directly. If you like this podcast, you'd love the 100-year conversation. My friends at Timeless take an unusually long view on businesses and the people who build them. They believe that best founders do their best work in years 10 through 50, not years 1 through 5, and they wanted to learn from the operators who actually got there. So they started interviewing CEOs of institutions that have lasted, or have a real shot at lasting a century. Michael Dell, General Petraeus, Nikesh Arora, Tyler Cowen, and many more to come. Read the conversations at timelesspartners.com. How did you meet your wife? Did you meet her in San Francisco?
No, actually, I met her 3 weeks before I moved to San Francisco.
Oh, wow. She did long distance the whole time.
We were long distance for 2 years before we got married. It wasn't as bad as it sounded because like it just took forever to get a visa. So I was going back and forth a lot. Like I was like every 3 months I had to go back. And then eventually in that company I got a visa. And then I moved to the next company. So I was back in the same position. So yeah, we were seeing each other a lot, even though we were long distance. Yeah, I met her through Facebook actually.
Oh wow!
Like just super random. Like she added me as a friend. I messaged her, and then we got together. And then actually, 3 weeks before I left for San Francisco, I didn't even know I was leaving. So it was like literally 1.5 weeks into like meeting her, I was like, actually, I'm leaving now.
Yeah.
But I thought it was temporary because you're not like when you move countries, you're not like this is my life now. I was like, oh yeah, I'll go for a couple of years. I'll sell this company and then I'll come back.
Yeah.
That was kind of the pitch I had for her. So she was like willing to wait. Although I think she kind of expected me not to kind of keep in touch. But then we did.
Yeah. What mattered to you then? Was it really just having fun in your life and working on things that excited you?
I think it's like very hard to like know what is the purpose of your life. And I really, when I did my first startup, it felt like I'd found my purpose. I don't know, is that a weird thing to say?
No, I think it makes sense.
Well,
it's because you're in control of the outcome, and so.
I was just so motivated, and it was just like so interesting to me that I could like try to build something and like launch something. Like every aspect of it was just like super interesting to me, even though like it wasn't successful, but I just found this thing and I was like, you know what, like I'm just going to do this for the rest of my life. And I just had this like really strong feeling within like 5 months or 6 months. I think it's also partly because how much I hated working at Bloomberg. And I really felt like if that's the alternative, like, doing this one thing where like I was working really hard, I had no money, but like I just found that like I could do anything versus like being extremely unmotivated. I was just like, okay, this is just what I want to do.
Do you think it came from your dad, seeing him start a business and being
I think to some extent, I don't know what it comes from exactly. There's definitely like an influence. Like I remember once my dad said, like, I just can't work for anyone. Because, we moved to the UK and we didn't have that much money. And he just really struggled getting a job in the UK. He just, well, like he still had his garage in Pakistan and like he kind of sustained us and himself through that. But he just couldn't get a job. And so I had this like backup idea at the back of my mind that like, that's a thing. So that was definitely part of it. Also really, I'm like very interested in like why something is being done. And Bloomberg, it really felt like I was a cog in the wheel. Like I would get a ticket and it was like, go fix this thing. And I was like, you never spoke to customers. There's probably like a better work environment where I wouldn't have felt like that. But it definitely felt like I didn't know what like the thing was. I just knew I had to like do this fix. And sure, I could do the fix, but it felt like my role was not important. And I was like just a thing that could like function, but like didn't have like a direction or like my full capacity was not being utilized. Whereas like in a startup, it's like more than my full capacity is being utilized. I have to continuously push myself to learn things. And like, I had to do a lot of crazy shit. Like I've at least historically back then, I saw myself as like a relatively shy person.
Yeah.
But when you're doing a startup, you don't have an excuse. You got to like do sales. You got to talk to customers.
What's some of the stuff you did that was just out there for you?
We're doing a Yelp for England or UK. So rather than trying to do London, where there's like thousands of restaurants, I was like, let's go to a small city and just go to every single place and map it out and do reviews for every single place. So like have like a critical mass. So I went to Cambridge just because I went to university there, so I understood it. And I just went like door to door, like restaurants, bars, whatever. And I was like, hey, if we cover you, would you like put like a poster on your wall or like coasters for like pubs and things like that. So going door to door and with like this random proposition, but everyone said yes. Everyone was like, I was like, okay, this like seems very doable. So like that was a scary thing to do to go like door to door. Like I'd never done like any actual sales. Like I was always an engineer or whatever.
Talk about the early story of Mercury. You, if I'm not mistaken, undertaking these series of meetings to validate the business. In some sense, some would say that's sort of the wrong way to go about building a business, right? You should have some sort of industry expertise. The other caveat here is you had this list of companies or ideas or things that have broken in the world, and banking was one of them. And so talk about that early story. What did you actually do? Who was the first person you spoke to? What did you even ask them? How did you discern that this was the right thing to do?
Yeah. I mean, I would say like there's no right way to do a business. Like I think any successful business is an outlier. So like just do, I don't think people should like worry about trying to do things the right way. Mercury was this like relatively long story. Like I had this idea in 2013, but I didn't get started working on it until 2017. So it was, I always have a list of like, here's some interesting ideas. And normally someone else does them or I get bored with them, but this idea was in the back of my mind for like 4 years before I started working on it. My approach to working on it was initially I was like, it's a cool idea. I'm excited about it. It could be huge. I'm pretty sure people would use it, but I have no idea how to do this. And maybe it's impossible, right? So,
what was the original kind of spark? It was just that banking is bad, the interface should be better, it's slow.
There was a few sparks. Like number one, banking in the UK is better. Like payments are instant and free. The apps were better. Everyone in the US, in the startup space at least, used SVB, which is, I don't think they would mind me saying it's a particularly bad user experience. So when I moved here, I was like, what the hell? Like, why do these banks suck so much? So that was like one idea that like, okay, it's just kind of bad. And then the second thing is there's this whole trend, which I used to call the consumerification of entrepreneurs. Because like, back when I first started and I moved here in 2007, everything was bad. So banking being bad wasn't that surprising. Payroll was bad. There was no Stripe. Insurance was bad. Like every single step of like running a business was kind of painful, and where the apps all sucked. And then so I had this list, and we'd go to like, I did Y Combinator, and I'd go to these Y Combinator demo days, and over time all the white space here got filled, where like we had Gusto and Stripe and Slack, and banking was just this obvious white space where it was, if you think about all the tools that you need to run a business, right? You need a bank account, you need a payroll system, you need an accounting system, you need a Stripe, merchant acquirer. So there's a bunch of things, and it just felt like banking was this one gap that was not filled. So I don't know, it seemed like an obvious idea. Between those two things, it seemed like an obvious idea.
Yeah.
But it was very much like an obvious idea that someone else should do in my mind. It wasn't like an obvious idea I should do. It was just like, oh, surely someone's going to fix this kind of thing. It's like looking at autonomous cars, and like a few years ago you could say someone should go build autonomous cars, but it's not like I was like, I will do it. So it wasn't until 2017 when no one had fixed it, and I was finally free, that I was like, oh, maybe I should just fix it. And then, in terms of approach, I felt confident that I could build the product, and I felt confident in like distributing the product and that people would want it. The bit that I didn't feel confident in is like, is this even possible, and how would I do it? So that's the main thing I spent like the initial time doing. And I was supposed to take like 1 year off as a sabbatical. This was like the first time I was free.
Of course,
and I did take some time off. So there was like a 7-month period where I was both investigating how I would do this and also taking some time off. But also I just can't sit at home and do nothing. So this is kind of my... So I spend a lot of time talking to kind of other fintech entrepreneurs, fintech VCs, a lot of lawyers, people who had worked at some of these European neobanks. And just got a feeling for like, okay, how did everyone else do it? What are potential pitfalls? How would I do this?
Are you a designer, or where did you have this instinct? Because obviously the Mercury design is really good and the product is pretty seamless and it's driven a lot of growth. Was that an intuition then, or was that just implicit given the baking?
So I mean, there's like two parts to like what people might consider design, right? There's the kind of look and feel of it, and then there's like the product experience part of it. So I would say for the latter, I'd been building products for a long time, and I was just like, you can just be opinionated and build like a sense of what is great there. So I'd built that over time. In terms of like actually making that, like making it look good, I definitely could not do it, and it wasn't until we got our first designer at Mercury that like we actually built the product, and she was amazing, and she is amazing. I definitely had like a sense of what good would look like, but I didn't have a sense, like I could make it myself, but I could build it, engineering.
How did you get your first customers, maybe the first 50 or 100 customers?
So the first set of customers, which we did before we launched, we had about 30, and they were all actually investments I'd made. So I was like a pretty active investor in 2016, which wasn't, I wasn't investing for this, but it turned out like, around, I guess, end of 2018, we started like trying to get people to test it, and like, a lot of the companies I'd invested were just at the right stage, like seed stage companies that like, I had connections to. So no, it wasn't just that, but a lot of them were like companies I invested in or like friends of mine. And it was mostly like they were just testing it. They weren't like using it as their primary thing. They were just like playing with it, and it was nice for them to kind of test it. In terms of like real customers that were using it as their primary bank account, honestly, that didn't happen until we launched. So it took us 1.5 years to launch, but we really launched at the first possible moment we could launch. Like every moment before then, like wires didn't work, or like cards weren't issuable. Like, we were testing like little pieces of it, but we never had a full product until like basically the week before we launched. It just took a really long time because we had to like do a couple of bank partnerships, and actually like building a fully functioning bank account that like a startup can use it's kind of complicated. There's just a lot of features you need. Like you need 5 different payment types in, 5 payment types out, user management, and lots of interfaces. And especially back then, it was like, it's not like you have great APIs to all of that. Like you had to kind of like cobble it together at times.
Who was your first investor, and how did Yash get involved?
I think like on the 4th day of fundraising, I met Andreessen Horowitz, and they basically like, and it wasn't really even a full pitch, but I already had about $1 million committed, and I met them, and they said, hey, come in for a partners meeting on Tuesday. So like I met them on Thursday, they said, come in on Tuesday. I was like, oh man, this is like a new mistake to talk to just one VC. So I tried to like ping a bunch of other VCs, but then they, by the time I'd even set up those meetings, they gave me a term sheet on that Tuesday. And it basically hit what I needed. Like I was planning to raise 5 million, and it came in at like a 23 million post money valuation, which I guess in the AI world of now that's not that much, but in 2017 that was actually like an amazing deal. So I can't remember like exactly who the first investor was, but probably one of my friends. Like I was kind of doing angel investment before, like Andreessen came in on the bit, and then. Yeah, I don't quite remember how, like, Yash found me and reached out. He was working with one of the Zynga co-founders, AT, on a fund. And yeah, he reached out. And I think probably after we had the Andreessen deal closed. But I wanted a lot of investors. We actually had 60 investors in our seed round.
Why do you want a lot?
I knew that banking is so much about trust, and I thought it's, if we have a large set of investors that have large portfolios, so I tried to target people who like invest in a lot of companies. I thought it would be much easier to get their portfolio companies because like there's some implicit trust. If one of your investors is an investor in Mercury, then maybe you should like at least take it seriously. So that was one big aspect, and the second thing is I really wanted people who kind of understood fintech and could be helpful in that. So those were like the two classes of investors.
Yeah. Do you, absolute tangent, do you meditate or how do you, go day to day? Do you work out a lot? How do you keep yourself kind of top of, I don't know, tip-top shape or kind of being able to operate in a good manner?
Yeah. I have a funny relationship with meditation. So I had a lot of like migraines, like especially 2016 around like selling my previous company, which was kind of a stressful time. And I found meditation was like quite a good way to like prevent my migraines. So that's when I started meditating, but I mostly only meditate if I'm like going through some, like I use it as like a tool rather than do it all the time. And I probably should do it more often. But yeah, I just use like, this app Calm.com.
Yeah, Calm's great.
So I just use that app, do a 10-minute meditation thing, but I'm not like religious about it. I just do it like when I feel like I'm going through like a stressful time. But outside that, I think I try to take weekends off and just like not think about work that much. I mean, I think about like the fun aspects, but I have 3 kids, and I think it's just important to have like that time away from it to like reset a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I also just don't try to, I take it all seriously, but I don't try to take it too seriously. I think people, I don't like naturally stress about things that much, which helps.
How deep into the company did you start not working weekends, or how many days are you just 7 days a week, 6 days a week?
So with Mercury, outside like certain like kind of busy like launch time or some emergency or whatever, I've never really worked weekends. And before I got married, I used to work just basically all the time. Wake up at 9, work until midnight. But I realized over time, like you end up like doing fake work. Like you're like on Hacker News, on Twitter, but like you're saying you're working. And it's like when you're working all the time, you're not actually working that effectively. And I also found that like, frankly, like especially if you're doing like hard work, it's just hard to like stay focused for like more than 10 hours a day. So yeah, over time I was just like, hey, I'll just be at work and I'll be 100% focused, and when I'm not at work, I'm not at work. I try to keep that divide. But a lot of my friends are like tech people, and I end up talking about work stuff a lot anyway. But I think that's like that's more kind of fun. I have this like kind of idea where like I think there's things that give you energy, and then there's things that take away energy, and like you can do things that give you energy all the time. Like it's not like the weekend is like you're still alive. So like, well, you're still doing stuff. So I think like. There's definitely things that kind of drain you over time.
Examples of both?
So like if you're dealing with performance issues, or honestly, a lot of like repetitive hiring and like things, like to me at least, they take away energy, and like it's probably different for different people, right? Whereas like if I'm talking to a founder or a customer, like that gives me energy. Like I could talk to customers all day long, and like even though it's work, right? Like I can ask them like, hey, what are your problems? And like, oh man, we should really fix that. But it's like there's just something about it. Like I find it like fulfilling, or like working in product is kind of fulfilling as well. Like talking about ideas and fun. You can easily spend 2 hours doing something that's like extremely energy draining and like feel like you can't do anything for the rest of the day. Or you could do 12 hours of like things that are like, give you energy and you could keep going. So I think like actually like I don't try to think about like time in this kind of way where like how many hours am I working? It's much more like am I doing things that like give me energy and like I can keep doing those forever.
That makes sense. Back to the list of sort of the start of Mercury. These are the things that are wrong in the world that somebody should fix.
Yeah.
Do you have a modern version of that list or things that are top of mind?
I'll tell you my second best idea and my third best idea before Mercury. The second best one was like tried to death during COVID, which is like I always thought like it should be possible to have a remote workplace where like you could still feel like you're sitting next to someone. And weirdly, lots of people tried lots of variants of this. They were all very well funded during COVID and nothing worked.
Have you heard of Rome?
What?
Have you heard of Rome?
Yeah, I've seen Rome. And that's maybe the one that survived somewhat. But again, like it's not been as successful.
Yeah.
Maybe its time will come. But yeah, Rome is like probably the best example of like that. There was another one that was like anyway, whatever. So that was like my second best idea, which I still think is like kind of interesting, and maybe Rome will pull it off. My third idea was to do like a Salesforce competitor to build like a new CRM. My idea at the time was to make it like very API centric. I think now you could make it like a very AI centric CRM. Again, lots of people doing it. I still think it's an interesting idea that no one's like massively cracked yet. So anyway, AI ideas, there's new ones, but so many people working on almost every variant of it.
What do you think is defensible? Would you go and start a pure software company, or where would you allocate?
I think at the end of the day, there's always been this idea of moats, like what's your moat kind of thing. And AI just kind of makes that even more important. So like, if you're doing a SaaS app where it's literally just software, has no moat, it's like a rough way to describe moat might be like, if 10x more people use it, does it get 10x better or does it not get any better? Well, that's like a network effect mode. But like you could, similar thing applies for data, or maybe there's a regulatory mode. I mean, there's like 5 or 6 kind of classic modes. So I think you just need something with like a strong mode. But I think lots of those things exist. Like there's lots of things that have network effects. And, so yeah, I wouldn't like. I think it's an amazing time to build. Like there's almost every category is going to get reinvented by AI, and it's you should do it. I wouldn't be scared about doing it, but you do have to be like a little more thoughtful about like what really has a mode. Like take that AI CRM idea. If you can nail that, that has like amazing modes. Like it's it has all the data and like if your whole team is using this, you can probably do a better job of like having the AI like add value.
Granola might do this well.
Sure.
Over time.
Lots of people will try. I'm not going to do it. Maybe I'll invest in one of them. I think that I actually think another good and like probably if I wasn't doing Mercury, I would do something in space. I think space is kind of interesting. Just because it's getting cheaper to get to space. I actually think generally like space tech and a lot of other hard tech companies, AI is extremely competitive, but like that stuff is not that competitive. Like there's people doing it, but I think the market potential there is huge. So there's lots of good ideas there.
Makes sense. What drives you day to day now? What's really maybe your 10-year, 20-year sort of driver or view on the world?
I guess 20-ish years ago when I started doing startups, I feel like I've hit I've gone beyond anything that I thought I would achieve. So. Like I said this funny thing where I was like, I feel like I'm in the bonus levels on the startup side of things. So I don't have like a thing where I'm like I have to do this otherwise I failed. Like I feel like I've got there. So mostly I would say like the two things at least with Mercury that I'm excited about is like I really want to build something that lasts. Like ideally when I die, like Mercury's still like flourishing and like still thriving and. I think it just takes a lot to build something that lasts a long time, and we're in a space where our competitors are like 100-year-old companies. So like we know it's possible in the space, and I think the space will get reinvented by people like Mercury, and ideally we're like one of the kind of lasting winners in that space. So that's one thing, and then something related to that is like I really want to continuously like deliver great stuff for customers. I know this is like a bit cheesy maybe, but like at the end of the day. I think what Mercury does is helps entrepreneurs and makes their lives easier. And I think entrepreneurs have like a pretty hard life, and finances are like a big stress for them. So there's a lot we can do around like just helping entrepreneurs, and ideally we can help more, right? Like we have 300,000 customers today, but maybe hopefully have 10 million in the future, and we're adding value to them all. Yeah, so I would say like that's probably like my work motivation.
And why do you end up formalizing the fund with Yash and then start this podcast on the side?
So I've been investing since 2016, and I realized that as Mercury got bigger, I wasn't doing the best work I could as an investor. If I know like I could do something better and I'm not doing it well, I find it kind of frustrating. And then Yash and I have known each other for like 8 years or so. I can't remember if I think he approached me and he was like, oh, maybe you should set up a fund. And I was thinking about it anyway. And I think the biggest win for me there is like having someone who can like really focus on it full time. So Yash is on it full time. And that really means that like we look at more companies. I have a lot of people email me saying like, hey, and like, before then I was like, if I'm busy at Mercury, I would just not respond, which I felt bad about. So at least like I feel like I can do a better job of like looking at the deals that are in front of me. So I mostly like not changed my strategy that much. I've fairly consistently invested in about 20 companies a year since 2016, which I'm still doing with Yash. Just kind of, if I was going to have someone working on it full time, I needed a kind of a structured fund for it. And then podcast side, again, actually, I've been doing podcasts since 2021. I started like one with Shio for like a year during COVID. I have this like rough idea in my mind that like I think it's nice to have like a direct conversation with the public and the world, and I wanted a place and a conduit to do that. I mean, mostly I talk to other founders, but I also I'm also there, and people get to like know me. And I think the future is like. Sure, brands are still important in the future, but I think it's the people behind the brands that are important. Like, whether it's X or LinkedIn or whatever, like, when a brand pops up, no one cares. It's not like, oh, Apple is doing something, but like when people say things, that's when like it's, you could say the exact same thing as a brand and as a person, and people care about what people care about, if that makes sense. So I think for Mercury's success, like my brand is important, and podcast and other.
Makes sense,
being on this podcast, like I do a lot of stuff that like helps people hear me, see my ideas, and like gives credibility to Mercury through that.
Who's been the most helpful or kindest to you in this whole process? And the reason that question came to mind is, if I'm not mistaken, I think Mel Williams and TrueBridge are involved in your fund. And Mel, I owe an immense amount to. I can probably never repay him. He introduced me to somebody who he was invested in, and we ended up working together. And that sort of kickstarted a lot for me. And he, in my mind, is like, this guy was incredibly helpful and so generous to me for no reason. Was there anybody in your life who was like that to you?
At my various points in my entrepreneurial journey, different people have like fit that. I definitely like feel like I owe a lot to Paul Graham. He invested in my, I guess, third company and my second company. And, back then Y Combinator was like much, much smaller. And it was really like a lot of it was like driven by him in terms of like decision-making and advice and things like that. So I don't think I'd like be here without him. So I guess him and Jessica. But after Y Combinator, that influence died down, and then my previous company was funded by Union Square Ventures, Albert Wenger over there, and like they were like really supportive throughout that company, even though like I did full pivots, like we were not the best company, but I learned a ton from they ran a lot of founder events. I feel like
did they invest in the Mercury seed?
Sadly not. They were like, they regret it now. Albert, you should have invested. But they were like super into crypto in 2017, and obviously Mercury was was fintech. I would say that's probably like the primary reason they didn't invest. But I was sad about it. Actually, funnily, Y Combinator and Union Square Ventures are not in Mercury.
Wow.
And both of them I tried to get in Mercury. But like, even though I feel like I owe a lot of my early entrepreneurship to Y Combinator, and then like that medium entrepreneurship to USV, but neither of them did Mercury. So
why did they pass? Why did YC pass especially?
I wasn't willing to do like the standard deal, and at that time at least they didn't want to do something non-standard with me. So it was more like just we didn't reach like terms. and then Union Square Ventures because of the Scripto thing.
Yeah.
But like I like them both. I wish they were involved.
How old are your kids, and how do you plan to parent them? And do you want them to be entrepreneurs and have this maybe similar influence your dad had on you?
So I have like a very long range of ages. I have a 1-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 14-year-old.
Oh wow.
And like combination of actually, funnily, visa reasons was one reason because when my wife first moved here, she wasn't allowed to work, so she had nothing to do. And we were like, okay, maybe we should just have kids. So that's why we had our first kid, and then COVID happened and other things. So anyway, we have a large range. I think it's like easier to think about like my kids doing the same path I did, just because I'm like, I can help you, right? If they decide to be like my 9-year-old wants to be a singer, I'm like, I have no idea, right? Like whereas like my 14-year-old is kind of interested in like startups and like maybe programming / design kind of stuff, and I'm like, yeah, sure, I can like tell you what books to read and like what to do, and like maybe I could help you get a job, right? There's there's something I could be helpful with. So at the end of the day, I want them to find something that they're passionate about and they can like really put their heart and soul into it. But yeah, it's like a little easier for me to say do this. But I really enjoyed and valued like the independence that my parents gave me. So ideally they're like independent, strong women, and I feel like if they do that, then like
Are they all girls?
yes, all three.
That's amazing.
All three.
Yeah. Are you gonna make them work similar to you? Kind of in the way.
You mean as kids or whatever?
Yeah, no, yeah. Get a job as a kid, kind of as a way to teach them lessons. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And my, obviously my 9-year-old's too young, but my 14-year-old is very keen to get a job.
Yeah.
But it's actually hard to get a job as a 14-year-old. I feel like, I don't know if newspaper rounds work here, but like that used to be the thing in the UK. You just like have like a local round that you do. Maybe they can do that in San Francisco too.
And what makes you the most happiest now?
I mean, my 1-year-old is like the free source of continuous joy. I don't know. Do you have any kids?
No.
Yeah, little kids are just like so fun. I mean, they obviously sometimes work, but they're just like, they give you this kind of endorphin hit every time you spend like any time with them.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, sweet. I think that's a good place to wrap. And I appreciate you doing this.
This was fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
And I hope you get to try this out.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely going to do it.
Yeah.
Should we chug some habanero sauce right now?
Let's do it.
All right, let's see what it tastes like. We'll get this on camera. We'll get you to get one of us to cry at least.
Yeah.
All right, there we go. All right. This is probably not the right way to do this either. We had some lunch earlier. Oh my God. It's not even coming out. All right, I just don't want too much of it. All right, this is too complicated. And let's just make a mess on this table. All right, there we go. Yeah. All right, you go taste it. Oh, that's really tasty.
It's not bad. It's great.
That's pretty good.
I like it.
There's this really famous restaurant in the UK, and it's a chain. It's called Nando's. You know this? Have you been to a Nando's?
Yeah, chicken.
I mean, I'm so annoyed they don't have any in the West Coast. There's some in the East Coast.
What flavor is that?
But it kind of tastes like that. This is habanero. Yeah. Oh man, the aftertaste is kind of hits you harder, right?
Yeah.
Are we gonna keep this in the podcast?
Yeah, let's keep it. This will be a clip. I'm
there we go.
On Twitter.
Yeah. Someone will disagree with my hygiene here with this table.
We'll
Hot sauce kills all the germs.
Yeah, that's funny.